Since the beginning of the day, there have been 133 combat engagements along the entire front line. The most intense situation remains in the Pokrovsk sector. There, our soldiers repelled about 50 assaults near 15 settlements. The Russian pressure is also being felt near Kostiantynivka. This is another strategic city for the Russians. Fighting is still ongoing there, but 12 attacks have already been repelled. 8 times the enemy attacked our positions near the Serebryansky forestry. The situation has also escalated in the area where the borders meet, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhzhia regions. 17 clashes have already taken place in this sector, but the assaults continue. The defense of Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region also continues. There, 2 enemy attacks have been recorded so far. There were also 6 attacks in the Orikhiv sector. Russian military units that tried to approach our positions near the Antonivsky Bridge in the Kherson region were also stopped. Weapons that changed the rules on the battlefield and beyond. The missiles are capable of striking targets deep behind enemy lines and destroying Russian columns on the front line. The enemy fears them, but also actively hunts for them. This refers to the Himars and M270 multiple launch rocket systems. Everyone constantly hears about them, celebrates their strikes, but almost no one sees how they actually work. And these systems have repeatedly launched long-range ATACMS at the enemy. The enemy doesn't hesitate to use even Iskanders against such equipment. But our war correspondent, Ole Konyenko, managed to join a combat duty shift with these American MLRS and see and feel the power of these now legendary systems firsthand. More in his exclusive report.
It quickly reaches its firing position and is ready to deliver a deadly strike in just a matter of seconds.
Everyone has heard about their work, and we've seen videos of their spectacular hits more than once. It was this very equipment that during the counter-offensive helped us destroy Russians both in the Kharkiv and Kherson regions. These are Himars, the already legendary Himars. Now they are operating here in Donetsk region, striking at enemy rear positions.
These are unique shots. In 3 years of full-scale invasion, almost no one has ever filmed the work of a Himars. And no one has ever stood this close to such American multiple launch rocket systems. Meanwhile, the enemy is really feeling the heat from the Himars work. The chances of surviving its strike are almost zero. And today, the American multiple launch rocket system will target an enemy column. The Russians were advancing toward the Dobropilia direction with heavy equipment. The crew is already ready to strike, but suddenly the order is called off. The Himars quickly leaves the field. Standing here like this is extremely dangerous. The enemy wouldn't even hesitate to use an Iskander on such a target. After a short pause, the crew receives new coordinates and returns to the firing position.
So basically they fired the Himars. It's already out of sight, that's a smoke screen, and the rocket is on its way to the occupiers' heads.
The enemy column starts to burn, while the Himars crew rushes off to reload. Most people jokingly call the Himars the ghost of the front line. It fires quickly and disappears just as fast. This crew hasn't slept since 4 in the morning. Reload, strike, and then it all repeats again.
I like it when they say we hit the target. It's just beautiful. Did you hit the target today? We did. There wasn't just infantry there, but also equipment. For example, the column is moving.
17 armored vehicles, a tank and infantry on motorcycles. The Russians are stubbornly advancing in the Dobropilia direction. At the same time, they'll be stopped by Himars, drone operators, and another American multiple launch rocket system. It's almost like a Himars, but on tracks and a bit older. This MLRS was developed back in the 1980s, but despite its age, it's maneuverable. And its loudness would make any other rocket system jealous. So the targets for the MLRS are special.
There were cannons, there were command posts, there were UAV control points, there was infantry, there were dugouts, there were structures.
The enemy is also hunting for the M270, just like for the Himars. The MLRS can fire not only 227mm rockets, but also send much more powerful ones at the enemy. For example, ATACMS. They strike at several hundred kilometers.
We had them, we used them, and we used them quite often. I can't tell you about the targets. That's a question for the command. They are much more effective because you can hit targets on enemy territory. The range is much greater. Plus, they're harder to shoot down or jam.
These crews are rarely seen by anyone, but they always operate in the hottest directions. Missiles launched from Himars and M270 deliver some of the most painful blows to the enemy. And as long as our partners keep supplying us with missiles without interruption, these MLRs are never idle.
Everything is done very quickly. With the Smerch, it used to take 20 to 25 minutes. Here, it's just 5 minutes and the job is done. The missile is already flying toward the enemy.
The soldiers themselves say that the appearance of such multiple launch rocket systems has had a significant impact on the course of combat operations. The enemy can't feel safe either near the front line or deep in the rear. A strike can hit anywhere. The main thing is the range of the missiles.
The longest ones can reach up to 500 kilometers, but we aren't given those. But you would like to have them. Of course, then we could reach Moscow. And what would you like?
Ole Kornienko, FAK ICTV, United News.
Moscow has once again demonstratively ignored Donald Trump's proposal to stop the war in Ukraine along the current line of contact. The Kremlin has categorically stated that it will not cease hostilities. The spokesperson for the Russian dictator Peskov emphasized that Moscow's position on the war remains unchanged. Meanwhile, Reuters reports that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio may meet with Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov as early as this Thursday. The location of the meeting has not yet been determined. Let me remind you, after meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky last week, Trump called on Ukraine and Russia to stop where each side is currently positioned, that is, along the front line. Also, according to the Financial Times, during the meeting at the White House, the American leader allegedly suggested that Ukraine accept Russia's terms for ending the war, in particular to cede all of Donetsk region. Moreover, he repeated arguments he had heard from Putin during their personal conversation. However, Trump himself denied this information. Aboard the presidential plane, he stated that he did not urge Zelensky to give up Donbass, but only insisted on a ceasefire along the front line.
We never discussed this. We believe that they should simply stop at the lines where the fighting is currently taking place. There is a front line. Everything else is very difficult to agree upon. If you start talking about, you take this, we take that, there are so many different options, which is why I say, just stop right now at the front lines, go home, and stop killing people. As for Donbass, let everything remain as it is, and then perhaps something can be agreed upon later.
Volodymyr Zelensky held a meeting of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief's staff. The key issue was energy, in particular, the restoration of communities after Russian strikes and the expansion of reserves of energy equipment. Communication continues with European partners who are able to support Ukraine with the necessary equipment. Among the important topics was the situation in the gas sector. They discussed gas storage for the heating season and repair work on the networks. The sources of funding for the purchase of the necessary amount of gas have been identified, the president emphasized. And of course, Zelensky discussed the issue of protecting energy facilities from airstrikes. The military is providing additional helicopters for these needs. At the same time, preparations are underway for documents for an agreement with the American side regarding the purchase of air defense systems.